sometimes all it takes is change. Good morning to you. Good Monday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or hockey. I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. Braves 8, Pirates 1 yesterday at PNC Park. The Pirates fall one short of sweeping Atlanta, one of the better teams, obviously, in the sport. It's just a generally lousy day for the team. Martin Perez goes down to injury. Joey Bart goes down to injury. Aroldis Chapman keeps struggling out of the pen. Carmen Wojcinski can't get anybody out. And whatever. I really feel like the impression that I picked up from the weekend and even leading into it was a generally positive one, and I'm not going to change that based on a bad day. And I further feel like that positivity has begun with the promotion of Nick Gonzales. As I'd been advocating somewhat arduously for weeks going on months, someone needed to change as it related to this offense. I didn't know who, and I didn't know through what means, and I didn't know at what level. But then here comes Gonzales, who in the 15 games since he's been up is batting .286, which makes you look like Ted Williams times 100 compared to the rest of this lineup. With 2 home runs, 14 RBIs, ranking second in the majors behind only Luis Matos' 18. And amid that, and I think this has been the most important thing for Gonzales, through his 65 plate appearances, he has struck out 14 times, walked 5 times. That is not the player that we saw last season. Not at all. And the most encouraging aspect of this is that Gonzales' run of not striking out nearly as much began in Indianapolis. It didn't begin up here. Whereas his run of striking out way too much had been going on ever since he turned professional. And it was, to be blunt with you here, exasperating to watch. It really was, because you saw that whenever he'd barrel the ball, it had this weird, almost explosiveness. The only other player in the system that I can liken that to was Liover Peguero. You probably thought I was going to say O'Neal Cruz. Cruz he's his own animal when it comes to this sort of thing. But Gonzales, whenever he would make that serious contact, it would really go. And it would go to all fields. And it would go in all situations, because you could see that he wasn't losing his poise. He would just swing and miss. And if you go back to the video of some of his plate appearances in 2023, you'll see that he'll swing and miss right through fastballs straight down Grant Street. Almost as if he wasn't seeing them properly. Almost as if he had, and the scouts love to use this term, the hitters hate to hear it, a hole or multiple holes within the strike zone, and pitchers knew how to attack it. So what's been the difference for him in 2024? This also started in Indianapolis, but really you could argue that it started in Bradenton in spring training, is that he's shrunken his hitting quadrant. He's no longer going after those pitches that, even though they're in the strike zone, he's not necessarily making the kind of contact or any contact that he needs to. And it's not like the opponents don't know that. The opponents have a pretty thorough scouting report on everybody, including if they just pop up from the minors. They just do. This is the way baseball is now. But it's very difficult for a pitcher to nail a really hyper-specific quadrant within the strike zone. It's hard enough to just throw strikes. So what Gonzales then becomes is a mistake hitter. That used to be a knock. That used to be another one of those, speaking of scouting terms, those things that you would say, yeah, all he does is hit mistakes. And I'm going to go way back in my coverage of the Pirates here and recall a line that Steve Pearce once shared with me. This was when Pearce was the Pirates minor league player of the year, and he came up after hitting 5 zillion home runs in AAA, and everyone was super stoked, and Pearce came up and struck out all the time, and eventually Pearce figured out that he's only going to swing at a certain kind of strike. And if he watched him go by, he was going to watch him go by, because they were going to have to be perfect strikes to get him. And one time, just one time, when I mentioned to Pearce that knock about only being able to hit mistake pitches, he said, yeah, but how many mistakes do you think these guys throw over the course of a given game? And he's right. They do. They're not perfect. The best of the best pitchers, even as well as Chris Sale pitched yesterday for Atlanta, aren't going to be able to identify individual quadrants within the zone and crush it. And that's what's happened to Gonzales. And to my mind, Gonzales has been the reason that the Pirates' offense has been as opportunistic sounds like a criticism, because they've had enough hits in enough different situations that it's not just that, ooh, here comes Mr. Clutch, or so-and-so came through with, guys on second and third or bases loaded or whatever. It's not that. It's that they've just in general been a little bit more productive. And I give that kid credit. I do. I think he has been the one who has gotten this going for them. And now, keep going. Keep making changes, because this is an entirely different scenario for this entire team if they can hit even just a little bit. When we come back, J1Q.
This portion of Daily Shot of Pirates is brought to you by our friends at North Shore Tavern, that's directly across Federal Street from PNC Park. It's home of Steak on a Stone, an eating experience, underscoring the word experience. The steak is brought to you partially cooked on an 800-degree stone, and you do the rest. It's a ton of fun, it's a great meal, and it's a baseball atmosphere like no other in Pittsburgh. North Shore Tavern, right across Federal Street from PNC Park.
Today's J1Q, and boy, is it a good one, comes from Oren, who says, DK, with what you said last week about something maybe going on atop the Pirates, the team's general manager comes out and specifically says positive things about Rowdy Tellez, and then the team's field manager doesn't play him, and then starts him against a lefty, and then the GM shortens the bullpen, and do we have a power struggle going on or what? Oren, my reflexive inclination anytime anybody brings up something that sounds conspiratorial is to dismiss it. Not to downplay it, just to flat out reject it. And I am not going to do that here. Because yes, this is what I was getting at a few days ago when covering the team in Milwaukee, when I told you I hadn't quite placed my finger on whatever was going on, and I didn't have anywhere near enough to report on it. Well, the truth is, I still don't. I still don't have something tangible that I could put a written headline on and create exclusive report from DK Pittsburgh Sports or anything like that. I just don't. But when I'm conversing with you and everyone else who listens to this show, I feel plenty comfortable offering things that I think. And things that I think are very much in line with a lot of what you yourself just laid out there, because it doesn't otherwise add up. You're right. On one hand, you can see that the manager is displeased with Tellez. You can see that the manager started him against a lefty in Paul Skeens' most recent start. That was last Thursday. He had to know that wasn't going to go well. I don't know that would have gone well if Tellez was actually his 35 home run cell from a couple of years ago. He's never hit lefties. And then, after that, when the subject of Tellez is brought up with Shelton, he repeats, not once but twice, that he's not having good enough at bats. And he speaks it in a tone that is not his norm for anybody. After which, following day, Ben Cherington meets with reporters, and Tellez comes up with him too, and everything's just fine. We don't see any issues there. His bat speed is there. We don't see any overarching concerns. He's just, he's struggling. All right, then. Well, guess what happens after that? An entire weekend passes in which Tellez doesn't pick up a bat. And this amid the atmosphere in which Shelton recently reiterated his stance that the lineup is mine. I don't know, man. Listen, me and you can do this all day. It doesn't have to mean anything. But it just might. I appreciate the question, maybe more than you know. I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Pirates. I'll be driving up to Detroit tonight to cover the 2-game series with the Tigers, in which Jared Jones and Skeens will be pitching, and Nick Gonzales, ideally, will continue hitting. Thanks so much for listening.